Hello.
I think we are live after this little preamble of trying to figure out what the fuck we're doing.
Hi.
Hello. How's it going?
Let's give it a good minute or two.
Yeah.
Let us know who you are in the chat. Remember we used to do that?
Oh yeah, ghosts in the chat.
Even before ghosts in the chat, we used to say
Hello.
first like and comment, chat
Hello.
comment. Nice.
Hello,
Thanks.
Austin Garner. I'm putting the mic midway between us. That way, you don't get like a
Loud Brandon
and a meek Jake.
Yeah, we normally keep Brandon farther away from the mic because he likes to talk loudly.
I project.
Evan Austin, what's up? Yeah, that I was starting to say, we used to do this a year ago. We used to ask who's in the chat.
Very awkward. I feel like this is almost dad pose, but it's like just like a little too high up to be like a comfortable dad pose.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like.
Hey Grang, hey Neil.
Hello there.
It's making up for you're treading water because you don't feel awake yet. So
I am not. Am I ever awake? You're leading this.
I was gonna lead it anyway. I was gonna be here by myself.
I mean,
it just so happened to be the case that you're here, which is very good. Maybe always the case.
I mean.
Hey, so I am leading this, I guess. I had wanted to do a stream on this day, because if you've read the description of this video, you probably haven't, because you just clicked in to see our faces and hear our voices. But this is a year since we made and released the Patreon, the after show in its first form, which was Brandon Havard's Patreon. And I thought that it would be really fun and sweet to reminisce on like a year in the making.
Yep.
How it evolved from... that's a good idea, Austin. I don't know how to do that, but maybe Brandon knows how to do that.
I don't, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, so I wanted to just talk about that, because it's like fun to reminisce about all the shifts that have gone on. As like a lesson for us moving forward, as a lesson for you, just to see the process, to see process change.
A year ago.
So a year ago, this was.
I'm trying to remember like where we were when we launched everything. Like we were definitely in that room. Like,
okay, so actually we launched, and I had a gig. I had a gig in Brooklyn. The day we launched.
Oh shit!
And I was like losing my mind because I think I had the Patreon app, and I was literally like for 2.5 hours driving up. I was just refreshing the app, and I was like teary. I was like, oh my god, like we have 5
hilarious.
patrons. Oh my god, we have like 10 patrons. What is happening?
Fucking hilarious.
And the guy, my boss, the guy who's driving with me, my friend John, he's the guy who trained me to become a sound engineer. He was like joking, you know, we had like 5 patrons, and he was like so surprised, and he was like, oh, you can buy me dinner. Oh, you can buy me 2 dinners. I was like, that's not how this works. But yeah, so where have the 3 a.m. tweets been, man? Are you actually seeing?
Sleep is for the meek.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Austin, you're just gonna distract me. This isn't good. You're supposed to help me. No, please don't. Like, this is literally the only thing that matters. I'm clinging to this. Please. Yeah, so...
Piss me off. Here, you keep doing your thing. I'm trying to put the focus on you, Jake.
Okay.
Trying to put the focus on you.
There we go.
Now I'm
cut forehead. Yeah. So, so we started out, and I don't know, how are you feeling day one?
Feeling day one of this?
Yeah, how did you feel? Because I know what, like I just said, I was pretty nervous and I was excited.
I mean, obviously we share the sentiment of being nervous. I think it was also just like we had been talking about all of this for so long at that point.
Yeah.
That like seeing it actually come to fruition was like real for the first time.
Well, that's okay. So let me ask you too, because I know that something you said the other day when we were talking about my album kind of has been resonating with me. You said like you've never released something that's taken, you know, a year or a year and a half to build.
Yeah.
And Patreon took a year to build.
Yeah.
And now it's been 2 years, right? So that's kind of cool to see that as like a piece of art, right? And
it's
that community can be a piece of art, that anything like that can be like.
It's interesting too to like think about like our train of thought back then versus what it is now.
Yeah.
And like how seemingly not much has changed really, but a lot of what we could do at the time was obviously what it was.
Right.
And how like over time and like with the help of an abundance of people and voices, we are now able to sort of see things to its fullest form.
Much more easily.
I feel like in a lot of ways, this is also the point where we can sort of jump off,
right,
and explore a new version,
right,
of Patreon, because like we've got here, in a lot of ways.
Well, that's the thing, right? So like I've always been a huge proponent for community supported arts, and I know that like we've joked in private about the fact that like Patreon might have just maintained because I've been so fervent about Patreon. Every time we've hit like a road bump, I'm like, it's okay, Brandon, no, it's cool, dude. We're gonna we can make it work. And
see, my natural reaction is just be like, fuck this, fuck that, it's done.
But you know, maybe even for the first few months I felt that. And so again, to give a history, you know, we started a Patreon and everything was kind of like like commodity based. We basically sold wallpapers and did like live streams that were private, and it was Brandon like editing his own stuff, so it was basically time with Brandon.
Yeah.
And that was the commodity, right? And it was like a couple months in, I think it was December, that we're old, and we like had seen that one of the things you can add to Patreon is Discord role benefits. And I was I have no idea what a Discord is. And
I think I just associated Discord with like Reddit, and it scared me.
Yeah. And I remember like having like a real talk with a couple different people that I know and respect who were like, hey, Discord could be really useful for you. Like, you keep using words like community. You can't really do that without a space to house your community, you know? So it was like a few months in, it was December, and we built the Discord, and I remember being so ecstatic. Like a couple people right off the bat just must have already had their same email attached. So the moment I made the Discord channel and the roles were attached, it was already like a couple people were just in the Discord. And I was like, whoa, this is cool.
Oh, I do remember that.
And I like started messaging people and I was like, hey, how's it going? And then I remember Jackson Hayes, ever present and ready to communicate, Jackson, was like messaging with me. And I was like, wait a second, this is so cool. Like, this is amazing. And we only had like one channel, and then we had a couple channels, and then we started doing like private channels, and then we opened that up. And I mean, the journey's been wild, and it was only like 3 months into having Discord, 6 months into having Patreon, and 3 months into having Discord, that we had maybe like 50 people on the Discord. And you know, quarantine happened here in America. You know, the pandemic hit everywhere, and all of a sudden, I remember feeling like, whoa, wait, like we've been doing this stuff. Oh, hey, Nikki. I'm so glad to have you. Hey, everybody else, but hey, Nikki.
You all are important.
Literally, I don't think I can see Nikki's name and my voice. Like, I don't think I could be like, hey, how's it going, Nikki? Every part of me softens up. So, not to call you out.
I would like to add, going back to the beginning of all of this, I remember specifically sitting with my parents after you, I think, had already left at that point. I mean, obviously, but you had already gone to your gig.
On day one.
Yeah, and I was sitting there just like watching the numbers slowly creep up.
Yeah.
On Discord and
on Patreon.
Not Discord, Patreon, and I remember like having this realization that it's like, you know, you can have all the subscribers in the world, but those are just numbers to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a profile attached, sometimes you see a name attached.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. But seeing someone enter into a space like that, that's supporting what you have because they believe in you.
Yeah.
That was a completely, like, I mean, that was a first for me. Like, after being on YouTube for X amount of years, to see people that had been part of my channel for so long and that had been, you know, watchers of my channel for so long that I guess I maybe would have had like limited, you know, interactions with over social media or whatever. Yeah. Seeing those people jump onto something that like I have been working on with a friend of mine for over a year.
Yeah.
Was like such a first.
Yeah, definitely.
Is like, you know, it's like when you talk to someone over the internet for so long and you finally see them in person. That's kind of the only way I'm able to sort of explain it.
Yeah, that's definitely what it feels like.
It brought gravitas to like to the internet in a way.
And gravitas to your I was gonna say like self-worth, but like self-worth as a maker, right? Like
it's more so like I felt like it was more than that though, in just the sense of like all of these people that you just see as statistics.
Yeah, definitely. And would that it could be the case that they weren't just statistics, but
no,
such is the way of something like YouTube that like in general, you know, this isn't like necessarily us making this assessment. It's like in general, YouTube, people join, people follow, people don't interact as much. And so I tried to like look at those numbers and think, I think with the jumping ahead with the after shows YouTube, like I look at those numbers and I know that each of those people have chosen to follow us, and that's a very different thing. It's like it feels like it has some gravitas there too.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're totally right. And that's a good way to put it too. Is like that people would be interested in this thing that the two of us have built together. I know that I had a little bit of imposter syndrome building this space with you, Nate, like calling it yours, because I was like, I know what it's like to be in the rafters, and I'm maybe okay with it, and I really want people to not feel like scared away by some guy they don't know, if that makes sense. You know, it was like we did start out like putting forward you and your presence and who you are, and like if you want a little bit more of this guy, you can get that. Yeah. And I was super happy to just be like, okay, I think this is my space in the corner. And that's been an interesting ride too, is the shift there. We were just talking a couple days ago, I was showing you something, and you were saying something I'll talk about in a moment, but you were saying like it's really interesting to see my like on-camera presence change over the year.
Dude,
you know,
I mean, like I remember back to like what was it? It was some video that you basically were forced against your will to be in.
Airpods.
Was that it?
Airpods. I did a spot.
Oh yeah,
on the audio of Airpods, and it was really interesting. Yeah, it was cool.
I remember sitting there, just like listening to you, and I was like, that was me the first time I ever like decided to make a video on the internet.
Yeah,
and then like seeing who he is now on the internet, like doing Great Beyonds or live streams, like I feel like you're more comfortable being you on the camera now.
Exactly. No,
which is really kind of a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked about this quite a few times, but like one of the things that gets me through that is like knowing, like I like looking at the camera and knowing, like literally knowing the faces I'm talking to, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm a community artist. Like I have to know that I'm talking to people that are receiving me. And so I look into the camera and I think of all these faces. But no, I think like I was a community artist before doing this, which is why we did this in part, because I was doing community organizing, and I've always been pretty good at getting in front of people to talk about mobilizing them as artists in person, and it took me a long time to realize how to do it here.
Right.
That was definitely a fun and interesting thing. But what I was starting to say was, like, we hit March, and we hit quarantine, and we played around. I cannot believe that was 6 months ago.
Dude,
we don't
time
have
does not
we
make
don't have to
sense
talk
anymore.
about that, yeah. But we realized what we had, and it was all of a sudden, it was like all the things we've talked about wanting to change the Patreon into. It was like, we have the moment to do that, and we need to do that. Everything we had fantasized about, this should eventually become this, or that should eventually become that. It was like, now we need to do it. People want this. They want connection, and we want connection. Everybody does things selfishly, right? That's not a bad thing, but like, we all do things because we need it, and like, I needed it. It was March, it was mid-March, and I knew what I needed. I needed to be able to be with all of you, and so we changed the plans with how we did the Let's Talks, and we opened some things up for a while, and have since fluctuated a little bit just to get our sea legs in that.
I mean, this was very much like the fourth iteration of all of this.
Exactly, and we're still moving forward. I mean, we're actually, like, we can. I want this to be fluid. I want to continue to reminisce, but I also want to jump forward and say, like, that's all to say that something we want to be able to share with you is that what we've realized is special about the after show is the community, and full transparency, where we originally built the Patreon thinking maybe this could help support us, it hasn't, in the sense that it's not been able to fully keep our lights on. That's okay. What it has been able to do is that we started the Resident Artist series, and we've been able to pay our artists every single month. And one thing that we thought about in the last month or two is basically, what if that was, when you're paying into the After Show's Patreon, that's in large part what you're paying for. You're paying to receive new artists, to know that people are being spotlit, to know that people are being highlighted, and to know that the community is moving forward and growing together, and to know that artists of renown are actually getting payment, are actually getting supported by your dollar. So that's one thing that we've been really interested in making the after show be, is like, to kind of pull back the curtain there, to like lower the price point of things, to change how things are accessed, so that all of you can get what all of you deserve, that in such a way that it also really supports our friends who we know need to be part of this, want to be part of this, and deserve to be paid for it.
Well, it's like one thing that
such as Nikki, who will be our next in October.
Shameless plug.
Yes.
Like, one thing that we went into Patreon saying a lot. Actually, I remember back at Starbucks, back when we were meeting at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Like, every week, sort of like talking about this.
Yeah.
And like, a common thing that, like, at least I'd say a lot was just like, this is ostensibly like a venture for artists by artists. And like that, especially getting into the after show iteration of all this, that really feels the most true, because it's very much a community that is surrounded by artists helping artists.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I think everything, like, it's been me learning Discord while I apply community leadership rules to Discord. But like I think every single channel that we have there, I'm proud to say, is a space where people can utilize that as a tool in a special way to learn from each other or to share with each other. You know, not to derail you. But
no, that's the point though, is like, we very much set out to do something that the first iteration we weren't really able to fully pull off or like see completely to fruition, but getting to where we are now, and eventually where we're going to be, it's just more of a focus on that,
Yeah.
which like is honestly the thing that makes me so happy about all of this. Is like one of the main things that we wanted to achieve in all of this. I feel like we effectively have, even in the smallest ways. Like just knowing that we've gotten here in a lot of ways just makes me feel fulfilled and like incredibly thankful that all of you have allowed for us to get here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is nothing without you.
Yeah.
So.
Right. I mean, when we talk about community-supported arts, obviously all art is community-supported art.
Yeah.
In that if there is no community around it, if there's no
then
audience,
what is it?
What is it, right? But I think in a very special way, you know, everybody who has come in from not just the beginning, everybody who's been here either for a week or for a month or for an entire year has helped to shape this space. And that is just so beautiful, you know. 200 people on our Discord.
Yeah.
You know, over 800 people here on the YouTube, which I force myself to say the YouTube so that I come off like a boomer.
It's like the Google, the YouTube, the Facebook.
Yeah. Did you send them an email on the Gmail? So okay. And I guess let's bounce around to say that drink water? No. Talk.
You just very much roboted there.
I like wanted to drink water, and then I realized there was a moment of silence, and I was like, "Oh, it's time for me to keep talking."
I can vamp.
Can you?
I can do a dance.
I trust that you can.
Yeah.
Vamp. Go for it, vamp.
Okay. He's drinking water. He's sipping the water. Don't look at him drinking the water though, because he has a thing about that. But
I do. Oh yeah.
Don't you?
Okay. So
I thought you did.
Wow, we're gonna go right off track. I think it's very weird looking when you have like a transparent glass and you're drinking water and then your mouth looks super big and you look like one of those sucker fish on the edges of an aquarium where you're like so yes, I do have a thing. Thank you, Brandon.
These are things that I've never thought before this moment.
Yes.
My god.
So I want to do something they do in radio more, which is like this is what we've talked about, this is what we're going to talk about. So we've talked a little bit about reminiscing about the year in review, and we've talked a little bit about the future of the after show, and we can continue talking about that. And if you have a question or you want to say something, we will try to vamp and read your questions and your statements. I love seeing what I'm seeing. It is hard to address everything at once. So another big thing, two big things. Someone make a meme of this screen cap. Okay.
Gladly.
Show us your teeth.
Gladly.
Show them your teeth. Claire acquires teeth.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, we did it.
Yeah.
So another reason that we're doing this is because I felt it serendipitous. On the same day that we opened our Patreon, on what is traditionally the first day of fall. We're in a leap year, so it's actually tomorrow.
Oh.
And also, mega serendipitously, the beginning of the Jewish New Year, the change of the season, all of these things at once, that I'm also releasing. I've released, as of 11 a.m. today, I've released an album, and I've also released a Patreon, which is pretty wild to say. And again, in large part, thanks to what we've learned through the after show. Patreon is a tool, just like BandCamp is a tool, right? Like I feel like some of these words have stigmas. People don't like Patreon, or people don't like whatever, but they're tools, and you can make of them what you please. The after show has shifted into a specific niche space where it's like we don't need 1 million people to support us on the after show's Patreon. We just ask for enough people to be able to support our artists, and it's a certain type of niche space that has been exclusive, and we're trying to make it more inclusive and more accessible. And in contrast, in part, my making a Patreon has been a very natural evolution as a tool that I know now, using it for 2 years, building it for a year and using it for a year. But yeah, that it's basically going to be a partner to my music making. It's a one of the tiers is called liner notes, but it's quite literally liner notes. It's the serialized biography of music making, which has taken me a really long time to realize how long I've been making art. I'm sure you've experienced this sort of thing where you it takes you a really long time to kind of look in the mirror and go, oh, wait a second, I actually have a lot of information in this head, you know?
Or the opposite. I mean, the opposite happens too. You look at yourself and you're like,
I know nothing.
Christ,
you should always know nothing. Yes.
Yeah,
I want to address a couple things real quick. Patreon is a one-man Netflix. Yeah, true. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
But it goes to people that you love and care about. Will I put my music up for streaming? No, I won't. I actually took them off streaming. The only place that you can find it is BandCamp. Streaming is in a bad way in the industry right now, and I can't get behind it. I had my music. I had the first 2 albums that I made on Apple Music and Spotify and Tidal and all of the crazy different things, and across literally probably tens of different streaming sites. In 3 years, I made $3. So no, I won't be doing that. I literally lost money because I had to use a housing site to put my music up there. And so as sad as that is, right? As tough as it is to feel like I know that my people, I know that my friends and my family and my loved ones want to hear my music and they want it easily accessible. I am adamantly opposed to what the music industry looks like right now. And I am not alone in as being part of a community of artists who believe that at some point many streaming sites' actions, the way that they act with music and with royalties and with paying out their artists, will quite literally be illegal. It's just unethical. It's an unethical system. Does that mean that I don't have Spotify? My brother pays for my Spotify. We have a family account. I have it on my phone. Do I think about deleting it every day? Absolutely. Do I think about having to talk with my brother? Oh, absolutely. Is BandCamp the perfect app? No, it's absolutely not. They're a small scale app, and they literally, they're a startup basically, as opposed to Spotify, which is worth an insane amount of money and has an insane amount of employees. And that's okay. I think it was one of those looking in the mirror moments where I realized, I have trained for so many years as an artist, as a in italics, artist, fine artist. And I went to school for visual art, and I learned art management, self-art management, and the value of that, and where you place things is important. And I thought, I want to be able to get my music to as many people as I can, but I also understand that I want to be in partnership with industry that matters. If I had a painting in a curated space and I learned that the curator was a bad person, I would remove my painting from that curated space and I'd put it in a different space. And maybe it would go into a smaller space with less employees, and they wouldn't be able to take phone calls Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But that's okay. That's anyway where I am right now. I hope that there are things in the industry that can change. And I'm sorry that I can't go on your playlists. I do wish that it were easier to do that.
Well, what you got to do? You got to buy his music.
True.
And then you sideload it through Spotify. Because fuck Spotify.
Right, exactly. Or put it on your phone. Like, you can do that on, like, iTunes.
Yeah.
Is iTunes even a thing anymore?
Dude, do you remember the point where I remember, like, this a couple of times, like, throughout, like, the month, but, like, the point where, like, streaming was not a thing, and,
Right.
like, you would just literally, per song, buy the song for, like, $1.30.
Exactly.
Like, I had so much music on my phone for such a long time
Yeah.
that I spent so much money on.
Yeah, and like...
I didn't, like... I didn't even really think about it, but, like, that's kind of, like, the thing that streaming does, is, like, you no longer think about it.
Right. Exactly.
And you just play the song over and over and over again.
Right. I think that Austin was telling me the other day that Apple Music takes 30% off of purchases or something. And I was thinking, like, I want to do... I shouldn't have even said this because I should have done more research on my own, but I was thinking about how BandCamp takes 15%. And, like, okay, that's, like, how it works with curators.
Off of purchase?
Yeah.
Like, meaning, like, if you buy an album outright?
If you buy an album off Apple Music, it's at least 30%, and there might be, like, housing fee or something like that.
Oh, weird.
But, like, 30%, man, that's a lot. That's a lot of dough.
Yeah.
Evan says at least Apple Music allows you to load stuff on. So right, if you felt inclined to buy the album and sideload it, do you care if we buy your album and sideload it? I thought we were doing that, but didn't. I thought you wouldn't like that. So I don't care. I don't care. This has been a point of contention in the past. Bandcamp as a site, and I don't want to get like so derailed from our conversation, but Bandcamp. It's okay. No, you're good. You're good. Bandcamp as a site, there are no... If you go on Bandcamp, you will realize that there are no ads. Bandcamp does not have advertisement at all. It is a space for artists by artists. That's their whole motto. That's their whole model.
Right.
I guess motto as well. That being said, without ads, you can't have ad revenue. So people get so locked into, well, is the value of your music being played, like, is it the value, does the value come from streaming? No. On Bandcamp, it does not come from streaming. So you could stream one of my songs 5 times and buy it for $2, or you could stream it 100,000 times and buy it for $2. I'm making $2 minus 15%.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm making. I'm not making it off of streams. Now, would I love to know that you're listening to my music a lot? Yes, of course I want to know that. Do I need to know that? No, I don't need to know that. Maybe I need to know it through you telling me in a Discord. And that's it, you know?
Slide into those DMs, boys.
Yeah, you know, it's definitely just an interesting thing to think about, how integration and ease of access can actually be very difficult, right? So, like, if my music is up on Spotify, that also means my music is up on Instagram for people to use in a story. And that's badass. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is very shitty that deal only exists with Spotify.
Yeah.
Like, any question? Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll answer that question right now. I want to be doing this. I think that it's been only the last couple days, as this has become more and more real, that I was going to release this album within this community, right? The last albums that I released, it was before we had this.
Right.
I've released music, and I've done commission work that I've been very passionate about, and that's fine. It hasn't been able to pay the bills. And I think that, you know, doing work with you, like sound work, but also composing and organizing music and sound design and stuff, I've realized that this is my life. Yeah. Austin says, I'll message you every time I listen to your music. Please do it. I know I can hold you to that. But no, with this music, with this album release and the Patreon release, I feel confident that I can survive on this as a maker. which I've never been able to do. In the past, up until March, I was a sound engineer. I worked for 9 years as a sound engineer, and I was making more money, and I was able to start expanding that if I wanted to, and I never really wanted to. I learned what I wanted to learn, and I learned how to apply it in artistic capacities, and I've always wanted to do exactly this. What's your answer?
My answer is we'll see, because I don't know. I think I've always been the kind of person that, like, when you stop exploring, that kind of just like feels like death to me.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
And like stumbling into this career path was very much an accident. Was not planned in the slightest. I didn't go to film school. I didn't do really any of that. And I think for a large part, like, I mean, my whole entire past has been a culmination of theater and design and just storytelling in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, with that said, like, this isn't my fullest form. Like, I think I want to explore as much shit as I can possibly explore, and never stop exploring.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I think being able to do as much as I can possibly do in my lifetime is something that very much makes me excited.
And that's the funny thing. Like, I don't know about you, but with hindsight, after looking at all of the different artists that I have been and all the different people I have been, you know, I started thinking I wanted to be be a professional guitar player, and then a professional composer, and then a professional sculptor, like, and then an installation artist, and all the while I was doing sound work, and then I came to this, and similarly, it's weird to say I stumbled into songwriting, but I basically realized that there was this thing that I had always done, which was part of everything I was doing before, that was what I needed to do. It wasn't what I wanted to do, it was what I needed to do to keep surviving. And I think that will shift over time.
Sure.
Because for both of us, we're saying, I think, the same thing. And I hope that you say the same thing with your answer, that whatever you are, it may shift, because you'll shift. It's like, you know, we get crow's feet, and we get gray hairs, and we grow a little shorter, and our
our attention spans grow less.
Yeah,
less,
and
less.
that's okay. That's appropriate. And just like that,
yeah,
our passions, right? Like, not, I don't want to say art, because there are people out there who might think, oh, I'm not an artist, and I want to refute that. We could talk in the Discord, but your passions, whoever you are, you have a passion, and that passion is reflective of who you've always been, I think.
Yeah.
Not trying to make this like all of a sudden a pep talk, but that's been a really fascinating thing for me, is that I have changed so much over my life, and I've also been exactly the same person. You know?
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I mean, your person reflects the medium in which you describe yourself with.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, I have always been someone that enjoys just making things for other people's consumption. Like, one of the most powerful things in my eyes is when I get to do like a show for an audience, and like someone gets affected by it in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Whether they're crying, they're laughing.
Yeah.
That to me is why I do what I do.
Right.
And like, even though I bring some of that to an online space where I don't necessarily get to see that person's reaction, I mean, it's in a similar way to what we just discussed about not knowing how many people are listening to your music
right
at any given time because you don't have that statistic.
yeah
It's like, it's just the faith in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That like what you have worked so hard on and what brings you emotional joy.
Yeah.
Does the same for other people.
Right. You pour yourself into it hoping that somebody can receive who you are. I think that
Exactly.
it's about genuine art making, and it's about genuine reception. Our space is the space on Discord and everywhere that it bleeds into, like here, but centered now on Discord, is one of my girlfriend Claire has coined it as, it's radical vulnerability. It's a space of like sincere fucking caring for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And where else can you find that on the internet?
Mm-hmm.
I am so proud to have that, and I'm so proud that the Brandon Havard Patreon, which became the After Show Patreon, was able to kind of sidestep that as a means of making and become something accessible for everybody. So in that vein, if you're not on our Discord, please join our Discord, even just for a second, to see if it's worth it to you, and see what we're talking about here. That this is a space where everybody's sharing and really becoming better for it. I feel like I am evolving every single day because of what I see and what I interact with there.
Yeah.
And in the same vein, Gabriel said something. No, I'm sorry. It was the question before, Gabriel. We can answer yours in a second. Says, I think this pandemic and lockdown, while having more terrible effects on the world, has really opened my eyes and afforded me with the time and space to evolve. And I would say, one, totally agree. Two, what I've done, not as like a plug, but very much this entire thing is a plug, a community-supported plug. What I've done with Patreon is that for this first month, because I've opened it up in the last 9 days of the month.
Yep.
The first two posts are things that will in the future be locked down to their respective tiers, but I would love to. I'd love for you to take a couple minutes and go see it because they're open this month. Those posts are public, and I'm doing a newsletter. And by newsletter, I mean something that's actually evolved out of the first newsletter we did.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of rambling and a lot of thinking about the connectedness of the universe and random thoughts about, the holiness of making and sharing with each other. And some of your thoughts that you're saying here are directly paralleling some of the things that I was talking about. So I would love to hear more of your thoughts on Discord about what you're talking about, and I'd love to see what you think in reflection of what I wrote. So you can check out the Patreon. I think I posted it in the description of this video. Yeah, that's such an interesting thing, is to the time and the space to evolve, the intermingling of time and space to evolve.
I think this is something we've talked about in the past, but it's like, in a lot of ways, I'm really thankful that in the time of the unfortunate, we have been able to be in this position.
Oh yeah,
where we can still connect with others and provide some semblance of camaraderie.
Yeah,
for each other.
Well, and that too. To give a little bit of a story on the album, I had been working on this album for a year and a couple months by March, just before quarantine, and I had the first couple songs done and recorded, and I had the rest of the album not even fully thought out at that point, and I didn't know what the album was going to be. I thought that it wanted to be about collaboration. Actually, I wanted, in the pre-pandemic world, I thought, I will take this album, this idea, these skeleton tracks, and I will go bring them to my friends.
Yeah. And
my friends will make something better than I ever could, right? Like, greater than the sum of its parts. And it was literally that exact same week that Pandemic dropped. And I was supposed to go to New York to work with the dance company, 277 Dance Project, which I work with and I write music for. We were supposed to rehearse our first full-length, full evening piece of dance.
Yeah.
I was supposed to see my friend Jason Anderson, who is coming to New York to do a show. And yeah, I mean, it's like it shifted, and I shifted, we shifted, and Patreon shifted, and our community shifted, and who I was changed, and I think we clung desperately to the community we had, and I clung desperately to this work that I had, because I see my art as journal. I see my art as necessary journal entry, to necessary catharsis, to get out what I'm feeling. And I was feeling so many intense, horrifying, responsible ways. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, and I don't even know if that makes sense to hear, but there was so much of what I was seeing that was so much pain, and I felt so responsible to bring some semblance of, not like ease, because we need to be able to mourn and we need to be able to grieve, but some semblance of unity. And I worked on this album, instead of going and making it a collaborative album, I worked in solitary, and I built an album that was very much about, my experience, my catharsis for what experience in the pandemic was like, what experience in the quarantine of your mind is like, because a lot of it was written even before pandemic, and it was so weird to see the correlation. This is what I had been feeling before even the pandemic. And so in that way, I listen. It's almost eerie. I'll listen back. I was just doing it a couple nights ago. I was listening back just to make sure every track sounded right or was okay, just in case I missed something. And I was like, it's really eerie. There are things I'm learning. I've learned this about art making in the past. When you make a big body of work, it takes you some time to actually look back and realize that you will begin to reflect on it differently. Because it's like a child. Like, you will start to interact with that fully made process over time differently. Yeah. I interact with my first two albums completely differently now. And if I listen to them or play them now, I learn things differently. I relate to the lyrics differently than I ever did. And already, like, it's quite eerie to see just how intensely I was writing about the feelings of solitude and loss and mourning. And the whole album is about love, and it's about mourning, which is kind of all I'm about as a person. I'm about mourning, and I'm about love. Evan wanted to ask another quick question. Could you explain what the Office Hours tier is? Yeah, so Office Hours came about as an after show. I keep doing this. I keep opening my water and then talking.
Do you need me to vamp again?
Do you want to talk about Office Hours?
Sure. Yeah. So Office Hours was, originally very much like a, almost like the fullest form of the Patreon. Very much like what we sort of conceptualized as V2 in its entirety.
Yeah.
And we couldn't exactly bring it to everyone at start, right. So we decided to just make it part of that very top tier part of Patreon. And basically throughout that journey, it sort of allowed us clarity on what that tier is and the importance of that tier just as itself.
Yeah.
I think, plain and simple, it's very much a tier where, at least I feel like, we have some like incredibly deep kind of conversations about just like, not only just art, but it's just like us in general. Like, we do Discord chats all the fucking time, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
Because like it's no longer just people on the internet, it's kind of just like friends in general.
Yeah.
And people that like, I don't know, like I've learned so much about.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just feels like like pure collaboration in a way.
I would say anymore the way, if we're not talking about the history of what Office Hours became, you don't care about that.
Yeah.
But I would say anymore, I would think about the Office Hours tier as subscription to a class that is co-led by everybody involved. I think that it is, we had this conversation the other day, I think that and this is not at all to like pat ourselves on the back, but we built this community, this Patreon as a community space, and I'm not quite sure that it was really designed for that, and so it can be scary, and it can seem a little confusing, that like what's office hours? What does that mean? Like, what is this? And really what it is it's a class. It's a co-led class by all of us. It is facilitated by Brandon and myself. But there are a lot of different elements that you get, where there is a Discord channel that is private to office hours that is literally anything you want it to be. It is an exclusive chat that is deep and meaningful, and the people in it care about each other more than I ever could have asked for. I'm like constantly blown away by how willing to be vulnerable you are with each other.
And I think also like there's kind of like a beauty in the fact that it's like every month I feel like the tier is different, like in the sense of like
because it's
everyone
ever evolving.
And I think we all sort of learn from each other as to what the tier is, but like at the end of the day, I kind of view the tier as like 10 plus people sitting in a coffee shop together, literally just talking about what they're doing with their work, what they're doing with their day, how they feel in general, just about being a creator. And it's also just an opportunity for a lot of different perspectives.
The long and short of it, the actual bullet points are, it's 2 video chats with us and the other members of that.
I guess this helps.
Yeah. That are usually they're at least an hour. They usually go over, but they're at least an hour. Just video chats, completely open to just talk about whatever. Usually they're always held right after our Let's Talks, or they have been, and so they usually like something that we talk about in Let's Talk might spark something. But that's one thing. So that's 2 hour long video chats with all of us. It's a text chat channel with all of the patrons. And might I add, all of our residents, because that's a huge facet of something we've included since May, I think, which is inviting artists that are our friends and our peers to come be a resident for a month, and then stay in that chat. And we get so that chat is constantly evolving and growing, because it's patrons, and it's also patrons who want to be part of co-leading a class, and it's resident artists who want to be part of this community we've built for them and with them. And then it's once a month, it's an audio chat, which is basically centered around the resident artist, and we get to ask them questions and talk about their art form, and we get to learn aspects of their art form. We pick artists who are our friends and our peers, but who are also in vastly different lived experiences. That's the focus. It's not just, I get to tick off this person was in theater, I get to tick off that person was a sculptor, that person was a this. It's everybody that we're inviting has vastly different lived experiences, and that's what I'm really, really proud to be able to share and to highlight. Is artists who have lived different lives. I know that's a lot more words, and we didn't start with the bullet points, so I apologize, Evan.
I think what's funny is like one thing that we've talked about a lot before we move on, is like for us, just because it's been such a long distance run from the start of building this Patreon to the point we are now. It's hard for us to specifically see things for what they are, because we've just been so deeply involved with them that it's like we've just been worried over here just making so much stuff that it's hard to have perspective for us. So it's like seeing people in the chat explain their personal experiences, that's what matters. That's what matters above anything we could ever say about the tier.
So to highlight, John Espino says it's catharsis. This is regard to office hours. It's catharsis, it's a class, it's a personal space. It's a lot of things that's just magical. A happy place. Damn. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, I mean, that's to any of you, and specifically to Evan, who I know has considered the Office Hours tier. It's all of those things, and it's putting some bread on the table of an artist.
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah.
You know, our residents, our people that we love.
So with that,
yeah,
shall we talk about the future?
Yeah, let's talk about the future.
Okay. So I think I want to ask the first question, which is like, with everything that we've done,
yeah,
over the past 2 years, really,
yeah,
what are you excited about moving into the future?
So I'm really excited that, you know, we haven't talked about this in concrete, and we're still probably going to tiptoe around it, but I'm really excited to bring everything we just talked about with Office Hours to the forefront of the After Show's Patreon. I'm excited that, honestly, one thing I'm really excited about is the meeting point of ever-changing Patreon and actually solidifying it in one thing. Because over the course of a year, Patreon has been a tool for us that we've shifted. Yeah. Every time I do it, my girlfriend Claire will say, you know, generally a good marketing technique is that you keep things in one way for a little while so people get used to it. And I'm like, I don't think so. But Office Hours is the crux of it. Office Hours is everything for the after show. And so one thing that I'm really excited about is being able to lower that price point, to focus on that, to make everything on Patreon about that. And then in tandem, to be able to open up some of the other stuff. I hope that if you've known us, I hope you've been, and again, this isn't to pat ourselves on the back, but I hope that you've been able to hear all the times that we've been saying, Patreon is a space of exclusivity, I get that, but everything we've been trying to do is to open up the space, to find new tools, and to make ways that we can survive still while making parts of those tools accessible to the public. The Let's Talks weren't originally public, and we made it that.
Yep.
We made it that to witness, but not to post, and that's eventually going to change again, because we love you and we care about you and we really love these things, and we know that it's just invaluable.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm really excited to find a little bit of grounding and for the after show to have a space that's definitive, that doesn't really need to change that much for a while. Once we get there in the next month or so, it can sit there for a little while, and it can really grow and learn as a tool.
We say that now.
I know. Version 5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm really excited. All full transparency. If you've been multitasking at all, if you've gone over to my Patreon, one thing that I talked about in my bio is that I want that space, as I want the after show to be this. I want that space to be fully transparent. I want it to be about community-supported art and about knowing that you are supporting who I am and who I have been and who I will be. And I'm really excited about, in a way that I've never been before, about really leaning into just getting the chance to actually be a maker, just through and through. In the work that I get to do with you, in the work that I get to do on my future albums, and in the work that I get to bring to Patreon and to both Patreons and to Discord and that sort of thing, and to know that, you know, that I have an avenue for paying bills, like fully simple, like that space is a space where I can know and you can know that I can keep a roof over my head. That's
right.
pretty fucking cool. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to know what you think about all of that. I'm excited to have this space continue to grow. The sky's the limit with our Discord.
Yeah. Truly.
Every single person that joins that Discord is not a number. They're not a subscriber.
No.
They are a valued member of a community that has never existed before. Yeah. And that's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
What are you excited about moving forward?
There's a lot of things. But I think specifically, like, with everything that we have focused on over the past year of really doing this, really focusing and honing in on the things that I feel work the best.
Yeah.
And that we all enjoy the most. Because, I mean, especially on the heels of Jake sort of finding his own path on his own Patreon, like, I think that there's a lot of cross conversation to be had over the next few months that I think will really make both platforms, well, both accounts, both Patreons, a lot better for it.
That's honestly why I, like, truly, I don't know if I even said this to you, and I keep forgetting that's why I did this. My inspiration for making a Patreon was actually that, like, I have been the most explorative on our Patreon as I have felt I could be within the boundaries, but there's a lot I haven't played in, a lot of spaces I haven't played in, and I know that Patreon is just a tool, and I built my Patreon thinking I could use this to learn something. You know, that's why we do these things, you know? I can use this to learn new things and to get more in touch with community in different ways, and those things I can, you know, I used 2 years of building the after show to build this Patreon, and now there's a conversation, like you said, between the two.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm excited, man. And I think that, like, just thinking about in the grand scheme of things, like, how much we've learned over the course of a year, thinking about this in another year from now.
Yeah.
Like, that's where it is.
That is where it is.
That's really, yeah.
I think that's it. So, okay, so that being said, a little bit of nitty-gritty, too.
Yeah.
Nitty-gritty.
Getting into the nitty-gritty.
I think of the orange gritty dude
Monster.
every time you say gritty.
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 If you don't know, go look up Gritty. Philadelphia Flyers.
It's
Gritty.
fantastic.
Absolutely. Peak.
I mentioned it to someone recently and they had no idea what it was, and I was like, look it up. They're like, oh my god, that is weird.
Oh, to learn for the first time again what Gritty was.
It's fascinating.
Anyway, so getting into the nitty blank of this, some of the changes that are going to come to the after show, I regret to inform you that the top of October you're not going to see Great Beyond. That is kind of separating itself. It has been separating itself from a purpose of the Patreon. And while we would love to be able to give you one every single month, they're really hard to make right now. And with Brandon working with Marquez more again, and with me having, you know, putting time into Patreon, into the album, and to finding a balance between when Brandon isn't in the office, getting to make, you know, continue editing and, like, really ramping up output.
Ramp.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ramping output on your YouTube and being able to find ways that we can do that in ways that can keep our lights on. The Great Beyond's gonna have to pause for a moment. It's going to be something that we will release when we can release it. As we've talked about in the past, the Great Beyond was meant to be something that we did with friends anyway. And it's really hard to do that. So maybe we'll make some more meals over time, and maybe we'll do some meditation and yoga. That's one. And maybe we'll do some surfing in the cold weather. That's one we want to do. But these are all things that we want to do, and we haven't recorded them yet.
Freeze our toes off.
Yeah, so we'll do them when we can. But for the time being, we have many hours of Great Beyonds you can go watch if you do like them. Yeah, maybe too many hours. And another thing that's changing is, this coming month, we're gonna have to change, because of some necessities. We're gonna have to change how the Let's Talk is going anyway. I'm gonna be out of town for the first week of October, so I won't actually be physically available to do a Let's Talk on that first Saturday. So we're gonna switch that a little bit. Again, join Discord, because we have one of the channels is literally a news channel that is news about what we are putting out. It's not about the news. It's about our news. And so if you want to know when we're doing things, that's the meat and potatoes of it. That's the nitty gritty.
It's a nitty gritty meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Some gritty meat.
Okay.
What else is changing? This is one we haven't talked about, and maybe we shouldn't even talk about it. But one thing, like, you ask what we're excited about. Eventually, we'll not be in this space, and one thing we've been really talking about, and maybe this will change because that's what we're known to do. One thing we've been really excited about is like making our operation a lot more fluid.
Mobile.
Yeah, taking ourselves out of our comfort zone. We've spent a year in this space, year and a month, and we'll spend a bunch of months still in this space, and then we won't, and we won't be allowed to say, okay, well, A-roll for Brandon's videos have to be like this or have to be like that. It's just going to be fluid.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting. So there's a lot to look
for. A lot
for.
of changes.
Yeah.
To come. But that's okay because it's exciting.
Yeah. I guess maybe we're coming to the end of it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot of what's been going on in our heads.
If we go on any longer, it's going to be unwatchable.
Yeah.
If you have any final...
doing this for? Oh, Jesus. It's been an hour and a half.
Oh, those sounds that you're hearing are one of our neighbors. They have a lot of unmasked guests coming and going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But their door has like a BB device sound.
Beep beep.
Beep, 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 beep. Yeah. So to wrap up, a year in review. It's been a fun time. It's been a wild time. It's been a necessary time.
I feel like you're gonna make it sound like we're retiring at the end of this.
We're always retired. You're always retiring from one thing and going on to another.
I'm tired now.
Yeah. And I really look forward to seeing you in the Discord, to seeing you in these spaces, to seeing you at least... Look, you don't have to join Patreon, and you don't have to buy my album if you don't want, but I'd love to know what you think about...
Buy his album.
I would love to know what you think about the album. It's 40-something minutes. Actually, it's less than 40 minutes. It's not going to take that much time. I'd love to know what you think about it. And the first 2 posts on Patreon are public. I'd love to know what you think about it. You can comment there. So...
That's something to add.
Do it.
Moving forward, because there's still issues with Patreon, but it's like, moving forward, interaction on Patreon is definitely something that is necessary.
Yeah.
That is something that I think that we really got discouraged by.
Yeah.
On the Patreon side of things. That's why posting on the specific Patreon has been like limited, because mostly interaction and like we get more voices and more eyes on it when it's in the Discord.
Yeah.
But I guess just moving forward, paying more attention to like the Discord side of things, I think is like equal responsibility.
This is like Uncle Brandon sitting down on the chair backwards, baseball cap, like you got like a pack of cigarettes rolled up in your sleeve, and he's like, You better comment on the
smoke,
Discord.
kid?
You better comment on the Patreon.
Yeah.
But really, that's we see you as community members through and through. I speak for both of us when I say like I have so much love for all of you. Like your presence in my life really lights up my life, and so we'd love to hear from you. I really don't know what else to stress. The only thing that I have that's a request is to hear more from you, whether it's on Discord and Patreons, both Patreons. Here, anywhere.
And stay tuned for the changes that are about to occur.
Yeah, and that's that.
I promise it'll make it all a lot more clear.
Yeah,
that is a pledge, a promise.
Until then, see you on Discord.